Hey guys, welcome back. So today's question is from Omolade, and Omolade is saying, If I've learned so much about self-development, I feel motivated to do so much. However, forming new habits and letting go of old ones have been a thorn in my flesh. How do I form new habits and sustain them? And how do I let go of old habits, old bad habits, and destroy them for good? Please, what do you have for me? Hi, Omolade. So I want to first of all assure you that you're not the only person, you're not the only one in that situation right now. I can assure you that there are a lot of other people battling with forming new habits. And you see, that battle, I don't know if I should say it is endless, because there's a lot of people that believe that people don't change, people are just the same. And then there are those of us like myself that believe that people can change. And I don't know if you've ever heard my first law of change. And my first law of change states that a body subject to gravity remains in a state of constant change. However, the change it undergoes remains unpredictable until it is acted upon by a predictable force. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the force that you can apply in order to form new habits and let go of old ones completely. You see, a lot of people want to change their life. They are always in search of that one big thing that will transform their lives immediately. They are always looking for that instant redemption. They say that Jesus died and in the third day he rose again. And they choose to forget that it took Jesus 33 years to get to the cross. Jesus had a big goal in front of him, but he had to take time to learn obedience, to learn patience, to learn faithfulness, and so much more until he got to the big goal. Now, your dream life is not asking you for 33 years. Your dream life is asking you to break up the fallow ground. Your dream life is asking you to lay the weights that are setting you backwards. And your dream life is asking you to take out the little foxes that spoils your vine, because your vine is beautiful. And the question is, what does that mean? And what it means is you must learn to let go of those little habits that destroy the future before it is even formed. You must break up those thoughts that keep you stuck in the past. And you must let go of those emotions, those hurts, those traumas that are weighing you down. So how do you form new habits? Before I go into the details of forming new habits, I must first let you know that the ride to forming a new habit many a times goes bumpy before it goes smooth. And what that means is that a lot of people in forming new habit, they just expect that, okay, now I said I want to start a new diet, for example, and they just feel because they've decided that they want to start a new diet, that their body is supposed to just automatically change. Their body is just supposed to automatically accept that new habit. And that is usually not the case. Neither is it some kind of linear kind of ride. No, it doesn't go that way. When you're trying to form new habits, it's usually like this. Like this. Can you see it? It's wavy, it's bumpy, it's not like this. And neither is it like this. No, that is not how forming new habits work. So the reason why a lot of you get disappointed and you end up losing the entire habit is because you just expected it to go like this, or you expected it to go like this. Just because you're starting little doesn't mean it will always go like this. It's meant to be bumpy before it goes this way. And the truth is, even people that have gotten to a very high level of self-awareness, they've gotten to a really high level of discipline, they too don't always get this kind of ride. How much more you that is just starting your journey of self-development. I myself, I don't get this kind of ride. It's like this. And that is the fact. And until you understand that, you would put so much pressure on yourself. Once you start, you would feel that, oh, I failed because I didn't get to do it today. I failed because I missed my 1 week routine. That is not how it works. I doubt we can see, okay, except Jesus, of course. We started with Jesus, so we would also end with Jesus. Aside Jesus, I don't see anybody else on this earth who can say that they've gotten to their dream level, they go to that level of self-discipline or whatever it is, just going like this. And as a child of God, learning to function like Jesus, we too would get to that point. But before we get there, it's usually like this. And you have to learn to just enjoy the ride. You have to learn to embrace it for what it is. Because when you're setting some unrealistic expectation for yourself, you're likely not to get it done. So you want to make sure your goal is realistic. You also want to make sure that the process is realistic. And that is why I'm telling you right now that the process is usually bumpy. The ride goes bumpy before it goes smooth. So whenever you want to take up new habits, instead of putting so much pressure on yourself, remember that if you told you that the ride goes bumpy before it goes smooth. So next time you're forming a new habit, and even now you're going to start forming new habits, you have to take it easy on yourself. So now that we fully understood how the ride goes, now we can then begin the ride. And in forming new habits, the first thing you have to understand is that there are two variables. There are a lot of other factors, but there are two variables that we are consigned with. The first is the familiar. This is the habit that you're familiar with. And the next is the unfamiliar. The second thing you're going to have to understand before we go into how to form the new habits is a statement that my reverend shared with me. And he says, there is no vacuum in life. There is no vacuum in life. So whenever you want to form a new habit, you have to be consciously ready to let go of another. And that is the only way you find yourself being able to form an habit that would last long. You have to be willing to let another, because your body is already used to a particular structure. And it's going to be hard for you to just bring in new one and dump it with the rest. And even the Bible says that you do not pour new wine into old bottle. So for you to form a new habit, you have to make room for that new habit by letting go of the old. If you're trying to start waking up early, for example, automatically you're destroying that habit. You're letting go of that habit of sleeping in. So you have to be willing to trade an habit for another. And the reason I'm taking out time to explain all of this is because when you understand all of this, you can then become a pro at forming new habits. The reason why a lot of people believe that people don't change, the reason why a lot of people are struggling with forming new habits, letting go of old ones, is because they always face the surface. They're always tackling the surface. But when you understand the principle of change, you then become a master at forming new habits. You then become a master at growth, not just for yourself, but even able to grow others. Right? You then become an agent of change by understanding these principles. So now that you know that we have the familiar and the unfamiliar, now the next thing is to understand the theory of the familiar. Well, that is what I love to call it. I love to call it the theory of the familiar. First of all, you begin to form your habits from the moment you're born. As a child, you're already forming your concept, you're already forming your perspective, you're already forming your thought process, you're already forming your belief. Growing up as a baby, a lot of your habits, a lot of your idea towards life is already formed as a child. And once you've formed them as a child, you grow up with them. And when you grow up with them, they become familiar. And what that familiar means is that your body tells you, your brain, your mind already understands that, okay, I've been living this way and I'm surviving. I've been living this way and I'm alive. I've been living this way and I am still here. So it means that what? I must be doing something right. And since I'm doing something right, I should adopt this way. I should never let go of this. Because who knows, when I let go of this way, who knows what might happen to me? And your body is so interested in survival. Your mind is so interested in survival that it would rather hold on to that old way that is helping it survive, that it has been surviving with for so long, than to adopt a new way when it doesn't know that if adopting this new way might even kill you the next day. Yes, that is how the psychology works. I call it the theory of the familiar. Your body, your psychology, your mind, they are so scared to adopt a new way because they don't know if that new way would be good for it. They don't know if that new way would be better than the previous. They don't know if that new way would continue to allow it exist, would continue to allow it survive the way it has been surviving. And that is why they keep fighting it. You're trying to form a new diet, your body is fighting it. You're trying to form a new routine, your body is fighting it. It's doing its best to bounce back to its old way. You go for workout today, the next morning you force yourself to go. The third day, your body refuses to stand up. Especially when that new habit you want to do, it's not comfortable. Ah, God, it's like you want to kill me. You just woke up and decided to kill me. That's how your body reacts. Literally. Do you understand? So that is the theory of the familiar. And then you have to understand that. So when you understand that, you now know why it is very hard for you to continue with something. Especially, and I can, to be honest, all of these new habits, the good habits we try to form, they are usually not the friendly ones. Imagine you're used to eating junk, used to eating sweet things, and now you're trying to eat carbs that are not sweet. Why will your body not feel? Why will your body not think you're trying to kill it? You understand? You're used to sleeping very well, sleeping as long as you can sleep, and now you want to start sleeping for 5 hours per day. No, if it is you, will you be happy? So that is the theory of the familiar. Your body is used to something, it's used to surviving with that routine, and now you're trying to take it away just to adopt a new one. And in most cases, those new habits are usually the most tedious, they're usually the most demanding, they're usually the most tiring when your body has been living soft life all its years. Now that you've understood the theory of the familiar, you can then consciously begin to embrace the unfamiliar. And how do you embrace the unfamiliar? It's not by enforcing it on yourself. It is by feeding yourself with the knowledge of why that unfamiliar should become familiar. And I'm going to give you a case scenario where when I had to stop eating bread. Now, I used to be a bread, I won't even say just a bread lover. There was a time I was literally a bread addict because I would eat bread. There was particularly a period of my life where I would eat bread for breakfast, I would eat bread for lunch, and I would eat bread for dinner. And I loved it. Like, I loved it. I loved eating bread. If it was bread and something this morning, in the afternoon it's going to be bread and something else, and in the evening it will be bread and something else. Bread, bread, bread. It was so bad that even my roommates then at the time were scared for me. So how did I let go of bread? So later I got to find out that it was not good for my health. My health was deteriorating and I needed to undo that love for bread. And I can assure you that it was really difficult. And it was even more difficult then because then I did not even understand this theory of the familiar. It was in my ordeal to want to grow and let go of several bad habits that I then came to understand all of this theory that I'm sharing with you in this video. So there was a lot of time I would stop. Maybe after a day I would stop, and then the next 2 days I bounce on it again for like the next month, and then after that month again I'm like, oh my God, I can't stop eating bread. I need to stop eating bread, this and this, and that, to start working, that and that, to start doing this, all of that. You know how it is. So what I did then was I didn't just try to force not eating bread on myself. I had to start reminding myself constantly, every day, every single day, as much as I can. I'm on my phone and I'm reading about why bread is not good. I'm reading about all of the dangers of bread. So in doing that, my mind got to start wondering, wow, is this familiar really good for us? Is this familiar really good for me? So it was more of a psychological thing. I was working on my mind, on helping my mind to understand why we do need to stop bread. And I can assure you now that it is so, I don't eat bread anymore. Like, it is so, should I say it is so good now? It is so bad. Like, me not eating bread is so good now to the point where even when I'm like, okay, let me just try to have bread and tea for breakfast, for example, my mind is already giving me several reasons of why I shouldn't do that, how unhealthy bread is, the chemicals, the processing, all of this. So right now, when I eat bread, I don't feel dopamine anymore. I don't get dopamine from eating bread. Even when I eat bread, I feel bad. I feel guilty. And it's not like guilty in the sense of, oh, I was happy, but then I'm not sad after eating it. Like, I just don't have that likeness, that interest for bread anymore. Why? Because I had to do what I had to start with. Okay, let me put my mind, instead of fighting against my mind, why don't I put it in the same side as me? And a lot of you, when you're trying to, a lot of people, when they start trying to form new habits, instead of trying to walk with their minds, they're always fighting their minds. And the Bible says, can two walk together except they agree? How can you force new habits on your mind, on your body, when it has not agreed to accept that habit? You have to learn to walk with your mind. In forming new habits, you have to learn to walk with your mind. In embracing the unfamiliar, you have to learn to walk with your mind and not against it. A house against itself cannot stand. And in embracing the unfamiliar, this is where baby steps come in, taking gradual steps. So before, when I initially started, I was like, I'm no longer going to be eating bread, and I'll be so tempted. Even the smell of bread will not allow me to think straight. Like, that was how bad it was. Especially that period when you're saying, I'm not going to eat bread. It's almost as though that is when everybody around you is not eating bread or doing that thing that you say you want to stop doing. And that is why it is never good to stop abruptly. You have to learn to reduce it one step at a time. When I finally got to start learning all of this knowledge, instead of telling myself I'm no longer eating bread, I started telling myself, okay, I'll stop eating bread to sleep, so no more bread for dinner. So when I got used to no more bread for dinner, and in the same period, I'm also teaching my mind more on why bread is not good for us. So later, okay, I'm no longer eating bread for lunch as well. So no more bread for lunch, no more bread for dinner. If I'm going to eat bread, it's going to be for breakfast. And this is not like a week later. This is like month later, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, as much as is needed later. You don't just say, if it's going to need 6 months later, let it be 6 months later. I'm going to move to the next step. And now I've gotten to a level where I can't even stand bread. Even the smell of bread, sometimes the smell of bread disgusts me. Even when I do decide to eat it, because of the level of understanding and training I've given my mind, I'm not like an addict that is jumping and like, when an addict has been starved for so long, and when you're going back to that thing, it's always excess, it's always extravagant. Even if I choose to take bread now as a meal, I take it normally. I eat it normally, and I'm very fine not eating it again later for the next 2 months. So we started with the theory of the familiar, embracing the unfamiliar, and the third, which is letting go of the familiar. Letting go of the familiar is something I already explained, but I did not title it out as a topic, although I explained it just now. And letting go of the familiar is also when you do it gradually. Like I said, me letting my own process of letting go of the familiar in that bread, learning to not wanting to eat bread anymore, was me saying, okay, I want to let go of the familiar. Now the familiar was me eating bread morning, afternoon, evening. So me letting go of the familiar was me saying, okay, evening, no more bread. I let go of the familiar, and to replace that, I replaced it with healthy meal. Started eating something healthy that evening. So letting go of the familiar again, okay, lunch, no more bread. I replace it with what? Something else. Until I let go of the familiar so much that right now I've gotten to the fourth stage in that habit, that the bread is now the unfamiliar. And the unfamiliar, which was not eating bread, then me not eating bread was totally outrageous. Then it was totally unfamiliar. But now me not eating bread is now my new familiar. And that is the fourth and the final stage to every habit. That is the full circle of letting go of an habit. The first is what? The theory of the familiar. You have to understand the familiar, understand its patterns, understand why you are craving it so much, understand its root cause, the root cause for that habit. When you understand it fully, you then know how to let it go. When you let go of the root cause, if there's a mindset that is propagating that behavior, there's a mindset within you that is making you act like that, tackle that mindset. Understand the theory of the familiar. And then you start to embrace the unfamiliar. This is when you're taking little step towards that new habit. And you're letting go of that unfamiliar. You're letting go of the familiar. That's the third step. Letting go of the familiar, the third step. And the second and third step usually work together because, like I said, it's a vacuum. If you're filling a glass cup, an empty cup with water, now when you take that empty cup, it's filled with air. But the more you pour water, the more the water is displacing the air. So step number 2, embracing the unfamiliar, and step number 3, letting go of the familiar. They work hand in hand. As you're embracing the familiar, you're automatically letting go of the unfamiliar. Gradually, consciously, bringing your mind in with you by constantly telling yourself the why. And the more you do that, then you get to the final step, which is making the unfamiliar familiar. And if you can do all of this together, I assure you that you'll become a master at forming new habits. You'll become more conscious, more aware of how to form new habits. You have to be ready to stick with the unfamiliar until it becomes familiar. No matter how many times you fail at it, you go again. You go again with better knowledge, with better understanding, with better results, and you keep at it until that results become permanent. And that is when you become the master of forming new habits and crushing old ones. So guys, we've come to the end of this video and it was really interesting for me. It reminded me of a lot of journey of where I'm coming from, because the story of the bird is not the only habit I've had to let go of, but that's the most insensitive one that I can share with you guys for now. So I hope you learned so much and I hope you're going to start forming new habits now with this new knowledge that you have, right? So go form new habits, share your journey, share your experiences so far in the comment section, share what you think, what you've learned from what I've said in the comment section. And if you have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section as well, and I will do well to attend to all of them. And do not forget to like this video, share it to people that are also in their self-development journey. And if you've not subscribed to this channel, please, what are you waiting for? Do well to subscribe now and join this community. And as always, I love you and I'll see you in my next video. Ciao, ciao.